Good day, class, and thank you for attending our first laboratory discussion. So, for our meeting today, I'm going to discuss to you your activity 1, which would tackle about dilution. So, familiar na kayo sa word na dilution, di ba? Pag sinabi mong dilute, sa mga previous subjects nyo sa chemistry, di ba? Pag sinabi mong dilute or dilution, you're trying to lessen the concentration. So in this meeting, you will understand why do we need to perform dilution sa immunosero laboratory and even in other laboratory. If na-recall nyo sa bacteriology nyo, ginagawa rin yung dilution na yan dun sa MIC, saka MBC, yung minimum inhibitory concentration, minimum bactericidal concentration. So ginagawa yan. So dito, i-apply natin siya sa immunosero. But before that, let's have a discussion first on what are the samples used in your immunosero lab. Now, as medical technologists, ang pinaka ginagamit nating sample is usually blood. This is the one that's commonly used, specifically yung part na serum, which is the liquid portion of clotted blood. Now, if hindi kayo familiar, paano ba nakukuha yung serum class? Now, to acquire your serum, you need to let the sample clot at room temp. Pag nag-clot na siya at room temp, isi-centrifuge siya. After centrifugation, immediately transfer the serum. So, pagkatapos ng centrifugation, kunin agad yung serum class. Do not let it stay there for quite some time. Now, there are things to avoid during processing. So, the first one is hemolysis. When we say hemolysis, this is just a review class. Hemolysis refers to the lysis. Pag sinabi mong lysis, yung na-destroy yung cell, nag-lyse, pumutok, basically na-destroy yung cell. Lysis of red blood cell. Now, to prevent hemolysis class, allow the clot to retract before centrifugation. Pag sinabi mong allow the clot to retract, ang gagawin mo dyan, you have to let it stand. Let the sample stand. Sinabi mong stand, hayaan mo lang siya dun sa specimen rack niya, yung test tube dun. Wag yung gagalawin. Let the sample stand for minimum of 30 minutes up to 1 hour. Pag ginawa mo yan, it will allow the clot to retract. Pag sinabi mong retract class, di ba, ito yung, kunwari ito yung red top nyo. Hanggang dito, this is all red. Pag nakita mo nang in-stand mo siya ng 1 hour, 30 minutes to 1 hour, makikita mo na magdi-decrease yung clot dito, bababa. Makakakita ka na dito ng serum. And to fully separate that, kailangan nyo siyang i-centrifuge. May mga laboratory sa probinsya, class, ang ginagawa nila, ini-stand lang nila yung specimen. Wala kasi silang pambili ng centri. Yung mga primary labs na maliliit. Pero bawal yun as per DOH. Dapat talaga may centrifuge. Pero in some laboratories, ganyan ang ginagawa nila. Papastand lang nila yung sample nila hanggang magkusang mag-separate yung serum. So let it stand for 30 minutes to 1 hour and then centrifuge. Another thing to avoid that would cause hemolysis class is you need to avoid repeat centrifugation. Kapag na-centrifuge mo na siya once, do not repeat it for the second time kasi nakakakos yun ng hemolysis. Then presence of cellular components in serum. So to prevent this, so may mga cases kasi na may mga cell components, may mga RBC dun sa serum nyo. So to prevent this class, avoid collecting serum near the clotted RBC portion. So pag sinabing near the clotted RBC portion, ito yung sinasabi ko. Kung halimbawa magpapipet ka dito class, magpapipet ka dyan. Diyan ka magpapipet. Dapat as much as possible, avoid dito sa area na to. Kasi remember, pag nagpipet ka dyan, it's possible that you could include the RBCs. And pag na-include mo yung RBCs, that could cause problems in your process or processing of the sample. So as much as possible, avoid collecting near the clotted RBC portion. So, take a look at these pictures, class. So, ito yung mga different samples na pwede mong ma-encounter. Ito yung example ng, this is an example of a hemolyzed serum. And ito yung normal appearance ng serum, class. Ang pangit lang, this is a very terrible, for me, this is a very terrible sample kasi may mga lipemia siya. May lipemic layer. So as much as possible pag nag-ano ka, avoid avoid the lipemic. Meaning nito na kulang to sa pag-stand. This was not allowed to stand long enough. And then ito, if you're familiar with this sample, this is a type of sample known as an ecteric sample. Pag sinabi mong ecteric sample class, these are samples that would come from jaundice patients. Pag sinabi mong jaundice, may mga problem yan sa liver. Usually, makaka-encounter ka ng mga ganyan samples kapag mataas yung bilirubin, mataas yung SGPT, SGOT, may mga liver enzymes. Common yan sa mga alcoholics and cirrhosis. You could still use that for immunosero, but we prefer class as much as possible yung clear, yung ideal serum talaga. So that's the things to reconsider. So this is just a review class. Familiar naman na kayo in your previous lab about this. Let's continue. Now, there are different ways to use and store serum class. Iba-iba ang ways ng pag-store ng serum. Now, the most common one, the routinely used, is the fresh, non-heat inactivated serum. So this is the routine sample. This is the one highly recommended. So these are samples class that are collected immediately, freshly collected via venipuncture. And then the second type of serum, refrigerated serum. Pag sinabi mong refrigerated serum, kaya siya tinawag na refrigerated kasi you're going to store it at the ref temp, usually 2 to 8 degrees centigrade, for up to 72 hours. Meaning, class, you can only store it up to 3 days. After 3 days on the fourth day, it needs to be discarded. So do take note of that. So pag refrigerated serum, store at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade for up to 72 hours only. After 72 hours or 3 days, you have to discard it. Then, refrigerated serum is done if testing cannot be performed immediately. So, example class, your duty is from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then the sample arrive at 2:30 p.m. So you have no choice. You have no choice but to centrifuge it, separate the serum, and then process it the next working day. So you would have to process it on another day, and for that to be still viable or for you to be able to use the serum, kailangan mo siyang i-ref. So i-ref mo siya. And then the third one is the frozen serum. Pag sabi mo namang frozen, you're not just gonna use any normal freezer. Ha? The freezer you're going to use is the one set at negative 20 degrees or lower. Sa laboratory kasi, especially sa immunohema lab nyo, in your immunohema, merong mga different set ng freezers. Merong negative 78, and the one commonly used talaga is negative 20 or even lower. So yung iba negative 78 pa nga. So this is usually done, itong frozen serum na to class, when you want to save serum for further testing. Pag sinabi mong further testing, testing in later months or years. So, baka yung sample niya has something that is very important, may analyte that is very important. So, you would test it after a few days, more than 3 days, more than months, or more than years. Usually used to class for research purposes. Do take note of that. Let's talk about your dilutions class. Now, dilutions is done due to the following reason. So, tayo as medical technologists, we do dilution to lessen the concentration. Now, sa immunosero, its importance is related to this. To get the optimal proportion of antigens and antibodies in the test. Now, when we talk about antigens, do take note that antigens class are any foreign substance in our body. Kapag nagkasakit tayo, when we get sick, antigens would be present in our body. And when we talk about antibodies, this is a type of defense component, a defense component of our body, usually found in our serum or our blood. You will learn more about this in your lecture. But the purpose of dilution is you want an equal or a proportionate amount. You want an equal amount of antigens and antibodies, because if too much antigen, or if there's too much antibodies, it can lead to erroneous results, which I will explain in the next part. Now, the reason why you want, sabi ko nga, the reason you want to have proportionate amount of antigens and antibodies is to prevent this so-called prozone and postzone phenomenon. When we talk about prozone, pag sinabi niyong prozone class, there is too much antibodies. And if there's too much antibodies over antigens, it can lead to false negative result. If there is naman another phenomenon, pag post zone naman, baliktad naman siya class. Pag post zone naman, there is too much antigen. For you to understand this, ganito yan. Ang itsura ng antibodies nyo, antibodies would usually appear as Y. Y shape. Ganyan lang. Pangit ang drawing. Wait lang, using ko. So, your antibodies would usually appear as Y shape. Now, ito dito sa branching niya, dito sa part na to. This is known as the FAV, F, capital F, small ab. These are known as the FAV sites. The FAV sites class is where the antigen would attach. So, draw ako ng antigen class. Let's choose a common type of antigen. Let's choose the bacteria. So, ito kunwari, itong bilog na to, this is a bacillus. Now, on the surface of your bacteria or your antigen, there are receptors. There are receptors known as your epitopes. So, kunwari, ito yung mga epitopes niya. Gawin natin spiky class. Kunwari, mga spike. So, these are the epitopes. Kunwari lang. What happens here is that the FAB site, whenever your body would detect an antigen, such as your bacteria, it would produce antibodies. Now, ang gagawin ngayon ng antibodies is that they would attach to these epitopes. Itong mga epitopes na to. So, drawing ako ha. How do I draw it? Wait lang. Ganyan. Sorry class, ang pakit ko mag-drawing. So, ganyan yung mag-a-attach ngayon dyan sa FAB site yung epitope. So, the FAB site would attach to the epitope and causing binding. Tapos, pag nag-attach na siya, the antibody would destroy the bacteria. So, what happens if there is too much antibodies class? Pag sobrang dami ng antibodies over the antigens, magpo-false negative siya. Kaya siya nag-false negative because there is less antigens. Less antigens, less ability for antibodies to bind. Mas onti yung antigen, mas less yung ability ng antibodies niya mag-bind if there is a prozone. Same naman with your postzone. Kapag naman sa postzone class, there is too much antigen and less antibody. So kapag onti yung antibody, syempre, less din yung magbabind dun sa mga antigens, causing a false negative result. So you need to do dilution to balance the number of antigens and antibodies. So I hope naintindihan nyo class from the importance of prozone and postzone. That's why we do dilution. Now, dilution is done to achieve a zone of equivalence. Pag sinabi mong zone of equivalence class, ito yung sinasabi nilang equal amounts of antigen and antibodies. So, do take note of that. Now, there are different terms in dilution. So, I want you to memorize these different terms class kasi most of the time, they would be used in our in our laboratory, especially during the computation. So sadly, class, maraming computation to. We will be dealing with fractions, but I will do my best, class, to help you remember, to help you understand this lesson. Even when I was a student, just to share to you, I really had a hard time understanding this dilution. Nangungopya na lang kami dun sa mga kaklase namin na sobrang galing sa math. But anyways, I'll try to explain it so that you would understand. So the terms involved in dilution is number one, solute. When we talk about solute, this refers to the material being diluted, class. So this refers to the sample. So familiar na kayo sa solute, di ba? In your chemistry subjects before nung first year, second year kayo, you would encounter the word solute. Pag sinabi niyong solute, yun yung material being diluted or being lessened ang concentration. Basically, it refers to our sample. And most of the time, our sample here, class, is our serum. Now, let's talk about the second term involved, the solvent or the diluent. When we talk about the solvent or the diluent, this refers to the substance added to the solution aside from the solute. So, dalawa lang yan, class, solute and solvent. Pag sinabi mong solute, that's the sample. Pag solvent, yun yung pinang-dilute nyo. It is also known as the diluting agent. NSS and water is the most common diluent. Lalo na sa immunohematology nyo, class. NSS is the one commonly used, which you will learn uh, in the in your immunohema lab. Now, how do you express dilutions, class? Dilutions, class, are expressed into two forms. Dalawang forms yan. They are either expressed in a fraction or a ratio. Example, 1 is to 2 or 1 is to 2. Ganyan siya. So, in the two forms siya na fraction or ratio. Mamaya explain ko kung anong difference nila. Now, take note of the following, class. In fraction form, the numerator is the solute. So, itong 1, itong numerator, itong nasa taas, this refers to the solute. While the denominator, class, is the total volume. Pag sinabi mong total volume, from the word total, is refers to the combination of the solute and the diluent or solvent. So in this case, class, sabi niya, yung denominator daw, this is the total volume. Kung ang denominator mo is the total volume which has a value of 2, combination daw siya ng solute. So automatic, ang solute mo is 1. So 1, isubtract mo lang yung total volume, you would get the diluent. So the diluent in this case is 1 ml. So let's try if naintindihan niya. I want you guys to find out what is the value of the diluent in this dilution. 1 is to 4. So I'll give you time to answer. So matic, class, yung numerator mo is 1. This is the solute. Now you have the total volume here is 4. So this is a combination of the solute and the diluent. So for you to get this, subtract mo lang yung total volume minus the solute. Therefore, the diluent is 3 ml. Okay, so let's do another example. I'll call someone. Ito, another one. 1 is to 10. So yung 1 mo dito is solute. Apply the same formula, yung total volume minus the solute, 10 minus 1, you get 9 ml as the diluent. So do take note of that. So I hope naintindihan nyo, class, how we got the total volume and the diluent. So always yung denominator nyo, total volume yan. For you to get the total diluent or the number of diluent, just subtract the total volume to the solute. Now, in ratio, the first number is solute and the second number is the total volume. So, same lang din sila class. Yung unang number, this is the solute, and the second number, this is the total volume. Yeah. So, one part solute or sample, one part solute, and seven parts diluent or solvent. Nagets nyo kung bakit, di ba, seven parts? Again, isubtract nyo lang 8 yung total volume minus the solute. You get 7 or 7 ml diluent or 7 parts diluent or solvent. Ito. Convert the ratio form to fraction form and explain the total volume. Sige, let's see. Sino gusto mag-volunteer? I'll give you time to answer. So ito, kapag 1 is to 5, let's convert this to fraction. 1 over 5. And if we try to explain this, the solute is 1 ml. And the diluent would be 4 ml. So 4 parts diluent. Total volume is made of 4 parts diluent and 1 part solute. Ito naman, 1 is to 10. So gawin mong fraction siya. Composed of 1 part solute. 1 part solute naman yung total volume and 9 parts diluent. Dito naman sa 1 is to 20, we have 1 part solute, 1 part solute yung total volume, and 19 parts diluent. So that's how you would explain bakit ganun yung total volume niya. Okay? So let's continue. Now, how would you differentiate dilutions versus ratio? Kanina kasi class, yung dilution nyo are in two parts. Yung fraction and yung ratio. Now, the difference is very simple. Kapag dilution in the form of fraction class, the numerator is the solute or the sample volume over total volume. Kaya, pag inano mo siya, interpret mo siya, yung numerator is 1 part sample. The denominator in this case is total volume is 8. The total volume is composed of sample and diluent or solute and diluent. In this case, 1 part sample and 7 parts diluent. Kapag naman ratio class, different lang. Ang pinagkaiba niya, the difference is found in the denominator. The denominator on the ratio, ito. Ayan, ganyan siya. Dapat, sorry, mali ito. Dapat ganito yan. 1 is to 8 yan dapat. Ang difference dito sa case na to is that the first number is the solute or the sample volume, but the second number is not the total volume, hindi siya total volume, but instead only the diluent volume. Meaning class, hindi kasama, it does not include the volume of the solute or the sample. Therefore, kapag na-encounter kayo ng ratio na ganyan 1 is to 8, this refers to 1 part sample, 8 parts diluent. It does not include, the second number does not include the solute part. Okay? So I hope that was clear. Kapag fraction form, the numerator is 1 part sample or solute, and the denominator is the total volume including sample and diluent. Kapag ratio naman, it does not include, yung denominator, yung second number, does not include the solute part. Do take note of the difference. So sa atin sa laboratory, kaya ang lagi natin ginagamit is always the fraction form because we want to include the sample and the diluent. Now let's go to the different types of dilution class. There are two main types. The first one is the simple dilutions. Kapag sinabi mong simple dilution, from the word simple, it would only require one step in achieving target dilution. So isang step lang class ang gagawin mo. You do not need to have multiple steps to get or to acquire your target dilution. The second naman is your compound or serial dilutions. This requires multiple steps to achieve target dilution. So take note of that. Now let's talk about the computation for simple dilution. So sa computation for simple dilution class, ang una nyo laging i-memorize kapag mag-assessment, excuse me, kapag mag-assessment tayo or mag-activity tayo, is always the formula. The formula for simple dilution would follow that simple dilution is equal to the solute over the total volume. Ito class, I want you to remember, for simple dilution, there is no division. You do not need to divide that. Pag ang solute mo 1, ang total volume mo is 4, you do not divide that. Hayaan mo lang as is lang. So ganito, wherein the total volume is the solute plus the diluent volume. Familiar na kayo dyan, paulit-ulit tayo since the beginning of the third or the fourth slide. The total volume is equal to the solute plus the diluent volume. So I'll give you a sample problem. To test for COVID antibodies in 1 ml of serum, it has to be diluted to 9 ml diluent. Tell me what is the dilution. So ang una nyong gagawin dito is to identify the given. Ang given mo class is dalawa, the solute and the solvent. Automatic ang solute nyo is the sample. In this case, ang sample mo is serum. The sample or the solute is serum and the diluent is 9 ml. Now, you want to know the dilution. So, ang dilution mo is in the fraction form. And again, kapag fraction form, may numerator, may denominator. Yung numerator nyo, class, is the solute. In this case, 1. Ang denominator nyo is the total volume. Again, gawa saan ang total volume nyo? Solute plus diluent volume. So, ang solute nyo is 1 ml, ang diluent volume nyo is 9 ml. So, 1 plus 9, you get 10. Therefore, your dilution is 1 is to 10. So, ganun lang siya ka-basic class. The compute, you do not need to divide in simple dilution. That's how you would get the dilution. So, ulitin ko. First, identify the given. 1 ml serum, this is your solute. And this is your diluent, 9 ml. So, in the form of fraction tayo, the numerator would be the solute. And the denominator would be the total volume. So, the solute here is 1. The total volume is made up of the solute plus the diluent volume. You get 1 is to 10 as your dilution. So, you need to do a 1 is to 10 dilution using 1 ml serum and 9 ml diluent. So, yan siya. Now, another computation class, there are cases. There are times class wherein the dilution is given and the total volume is given. So, alam mo yung dilution, alam mo yung total volume. But the part of the solute are unknown. So, the part of the solute is unknown class. So, ito yung sample problem. 3 ml of a 1 is to 5 dilution is needed for testing of RPR. Kindly do not include this part. Disregard it. So ito, 3 ml of a 1 is to 5 dilution is needed for testing of RPR. How much serum and diluent are needed? Okay, sorry, mali pala. Unknown din pala dito class yung diluent. So you have an idea on the total volume. So saan ba yung total volume? Itong number na to. This is your total volume. You also are aware of your dilution. Ang unknown mo dito is the solute and the solvent or the diluent. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to perform here cross multiplication. So ito na naman, sir, bakit may math? Bakit may algebra? Class, madali lang tong cross multiplication na to. Familiar kayo dito sa ano, if you're going to familiar kayo sa algebra, basic algebra lang to. Ay, ito na naman si X. Usapang X na naman tayo, class. So you're going to apply cross multiplication where X, class, is the serum or the sample volume. So if we try to do that, it's going to look like this. So you apply the cross multiplication, you multiply the fraction, the dilution over the amount of volume. So we have 1 is to 5 over 3mx over 3ml. Always remember, class, si x is always on the numerator, is always the numerator, or is always the one on top. Pakitandaan yan, ha? Then x is always the numerator or laging nasa top siya. While the total volume is 3 ml. So after applying cross multiplication, class, it's going to look like this. Bakit naging ganyan? Multiply 1 to 3 ml. 1 times 3 ml is 3 ml equals 5x. Bakit naging 5x? Multiply mo si 5 kay x, you get 5x. Now, 3 ml equals 5x cannot be solved still. Hindi mo pa pwedeng isolve yan. So you still have to cross it out. And to do that, you need to divide it by the value of x here. So gagawin mo ganyan. Divide po siya pareho by 5. So divide it, purahin ko. Divide the equation. Divide the equation by the total volume based on the dilution. So, yeah. 3 ml over 5 equals 5x divided by 5. So, ang mangyayari dyan, pag sinolve mo yan, 5 would be cancelled. 5 would be cancelled. Yan. Ang may iwan is 3 ml over 5 equals x. So, pag ganyan, pwede mo na siyang i-divide, class. So, 3 divided by 5 is equal to 0.6 ml as the required serum. So, you were able to identify your solute already. 0.6 ml ang kailangan mo na serum to do this equation. Okay? Now, you want to find out pa, merong isa pa, how much is your diluent? Again, kapag diluent or for you to get the diluent, babalik tayo dun sa total volume. Diluent, class, is equal to the total volume minus the solute volume. So in this case, ang total volume mo is 3, ang solute volume mo is 0.6 ml. Therefore, ang diluent na kailangan mo is 2.4 ml. And how do you counter-check this, class? To verify this or to counter-check this, dapat yung volume, the volume of the solute plus the volume of the diluent should equal to the given total volume, which in this case tama kasi 0.6 na solute plus 2.4 ml na diluent is equal to 3 ml na total volume na given. So I hope that was clear. Okay? So mag-a-apply ka ng cross multiplication dito, class. Okay? Basta lagi niyong tandaan, class, pag yung may value before the x, you need to remove that. And to do that, you need to divide it by itself. Pero you need to apply it also to the other equation on the other side. So ito. Let's try a sample problem. So I'll give you time. Try to answer it. Sige. I'll wait for any volunteers who wants to try. So in this case, class, you've already identified your given. So ang total volume nyo is 8 ml. Ang dilution nyo is 1:15. Unknown ang solute. unknown ang diluent nyo. So let's try to solve this. So let's apply the formula. So we have 1 is to 15 equals x. Diba? Sabi ko si x would always be the one on top or would always be the denominator. And if we try to apply this, we have 1, we have 8 is equal to 15x. Kasi 1 times 8, 15 times x, 15x. You need to remove the 15, and to do this, you divide it by the value. And you would get x is equal to 8 over 15. And using the calculator, wait lang class, calculate lang ako. 8 divided by 15, you will get 0.53. Lagi tayong 2 decimal places class ha. 0.53 ml. This is the value of your solute. And to get so you're already aware of the solute, you now want to find the diluent. So again, the formula for the diluent is total volume minus solute volume. So ang total volume nyo dito is 8 minus 0.53. You would get 7.47 ml. So, di ba madali lang siya, class? So, I hope you were able to understand the computation when it comes to simple dilution. So, sa mga cases yan wherein unknown yung mga serum and diluent. Pero given yung total volume, given yung dilution. Okay, let's continue. Let's go to the one that's a bit complicated, class. Let's go to compound dilution. Kapag sinabi mong compound dilution, this is the one requiring multiple steps. This is a series of dilutions made to obtain a desired final dilution. Samples would come from previous dilutions. Pag sinabi mong previous dilutions, class, gagamit ka kasi dito ng multiple dilutions, and those multiple dilutions would require multiple solute and diluent. So, iba-ibang solute, iba-ibang diluent. All dilutions would have similar sample volume. Pakitandaan yan, class. Kapag sa compound dilution, you all have the same solute volume or the sample volume. So, kung sa first dilution mo, 2 ml ang solute, sa mga susunod na dilutions din, 2 ml din ang solute mo. Formula, class. The formula for compound dilution is initial dilution is equal to the solute over total volume. Total volume is the solute volume plus the diluent volume. Makitandaan yan, ha? Then there's a final dilution wherein final dilution is equal to initial dilution times previous dilution. And there's a so-called dilution factor. The dilution factor is the reciprocal. Pag sinabi mong reciprocal, yung kabaliktaran niya or yung opposite niya. So an example of this is the dilution factor is 1 over 2. Kapag 1 over 2, ang dilution factor is known as 2. So pakitandaan niyang formula na yan, class, kasi gagamitin natin yan in the next slide. So initial dilution is equal to solute over total volume. Final dilution is equal to initial dilution times previous dilution. Okay, ito yung example ng compound dilution. Using 3 ml of serum, make a dilution of 1 is to 1,000. Kapag i-apply natin ang simple dilution dito, class, imagine nyo, Imagine nyo. Tandaan nyo, ang solute nyo is 3 ml. Tapos you need to dilute it 1,000 times. So imagine the amount of diluent na gagamitin mo. So di ba nga ang diluent nyo is equal to the total volume minus the solute volume. So ang total volume mo is 1,000. So 1,000 minus 3 ml. You need to use 997 ml of diluent. And because of this large size of diluent, hindi siya applicable gawin sa laboratory. Magkukos yan ngayon class ng mga prozone and post-zone effect. And you don't want that to happen. So to do this, you need to make multiple smaller initial dilutions. So you need to think of 3 to 4 dilution steps that would equal to 1,000. Parang ano yan klase, gusto mong makakuha ng 100. To get 100, you need to multiply 10 by 10. So you want to get a dilution of 1,000 using multiple steps. So ito yung mga steps niya. First step is to prepare 3 or 4 possible initial dilution that could lead to the final dilution. So ang maiisip mo dito is, how do you get 1:1,000? So try mo mag-apply yung mga rule ng multiples. Babalik tayo sa math class. But if you have a weak foundation on mathematics, I'll try to help you. So kung ako kasi usually nalilito rin ako dito dati, but I'll try to simplify it. So you need to think of possible small initial dilutions, usually 3 or 4 class. So ito yung possible na naisip ko. 1:5 times 1:10 times 1:20. So paano to? 5 times 10, 50. Times 20, you get 1,000. So ito yung first dilution mo, second dilution mo, and third dilution nyo. So sige, let's try kung na-gets nyo ha. What if naman ang dilution na gusto ko is 1:500? Tell me what are the possible initial dilutions. So, ang possible na pwede mong initial dilution nyo dito is 1:5 times 1:10 times 1:10. So, 5 times 10, 50 times 10 is equal to 1:500. So, mas maliit class yung gagamitin nyo dyan na diluent. Later, makikita nyo kung bakit. Okay? So let's continue. So I hope na-gets nyo. So prepare the 3 or 4 initial dilutions. Then kapag nakapag-prepare ka na, identify the amount of solute and diluent on your first dilution. So matic class, you're already aware na ang solute na gagamitin nyo dito, di ba nga kapag compound dilution, you have the same number or the same volume of solute in all dilutions. Pakitandaan yan na same lagi ang solute nyo. So the first dilution is 3 ml. So ang gagawin nyo, yung diluent nyo, to get the diluent this time, solute times the total volume minus solute. So in this case, 3 times 5 minus 3, you get 12 ml. Okay. Then after that, na-identify mo na yung volume ng solute, na-identify mo na yung diluent, follow the formula of your final dilution. For the formula of final dilution, again, final dilution is equal to the initial dilution times the previous dilution. Sir, may question kami. Ano yung previous dilution class? Previous dilution, sorry. Previous dilution would come from basically from the previous dilution. But in this case kasi, sir, bakit first dilution siya? So wala siyang previous dilution. Tandaan nyo class, sa first dilution, always, sulat ko always on the first dilution, the given previous dilution is 1:1. Sir, bakit 1:1? Remember, wala kang ang previous dilution. It was never diluted. So yun kasi nga siya yung first dilution mo. So apply natin. So ang initial dilution mo dito is 1:5. Then ang previous dilution mo is 1:1. You get 1:5. So ito na ngayon class ang final dilution ng first dilution mo, 1:5. Okay, I hope that was clear. And then you now proceed to the second dilution and third dilution. So just repeat the steps, class. So for the second dilution, again, identify the solute, 3 ml. Identify also the total volume, so the diluent. So this time, 3 or the solute, multiply it by the total volume minus the solute. So 3 times 10 minus 3, you get 27 ml. Then proceed ka na sa solving for the final dilution. Again, for the final dilution, yung initial dilution times the previous dilution. In this case, ang initial dilution mo for tube number 2 is 1/10. And then this time, may previous dilution ka na. Saan mo kukunin yung previous dilution mo? Dun sa first dilution mo, which is 1:5. So, 1:50. Ayan siya. Then, you go now to the last dilution mo, the third dilution. Same lang din, get the solute, get the diluent. Bakit siya naging 57? 3, diba? Solute times total volume minus the solute. So, in this case, 3 times 20, you get 60 minus 3, 57 ml. Then you solve for the final dilution. One times 1:20 times 1:50 is equal to 1:1,000. Total diluent use is 106 ml. Saan nanggaling yung 106 ml? Sa first tube nyo, you use only 12 ml. Sa second dilution nyo, you use 27 ml. And sa third dilution nyo, you only use 57 ml. So 12 plus 27, 39. 39 plus 57, 46, 59. Sorry, class. This would be 96 ml. Okay? 96 ml ang total diluent nyo. Instead, kung nag-simple dilution ka, ilan yung diluent kanina? 997 ml. So, at least dito, by using multiple steps, you only use 96 ml diluent. So, I hope the compound dilution was understood. So, meron akong problem for the next slide. This one. Sample problem. Create a 1:500 dilution using 3 ml serum. Sige, I'll give you time to answer. Or if anyone na gustong mag-volunteer na I'll guide them in answering. Okay. So pag trinay mo tong gawin class na simple dilution, 'di ba? Ang dilution natin, ang formula natin sa dilution, kapag simple dilution ha, kapag simple lang ha, is the total volume minus the solute. Matic 497 ml diluent. Sobrang laki. Hindi siya applicable. It can cause post-zone and pro-zone effect. Too much antibody, too much antigen. So you need to solve this tube by tube. So the first step is to identify first yung mga initial dilutions nyo. So 1:500. So pwedeng natin gamitin is 1:5 times 1 is to 10 times 1 is to 10. So ito yung first dilution, second, and your third. So 5 times 10, 50 times 10, 500. So ang gagawin nyo dyan first is to get the diluent nyo. So to get the diluent, again, multiply. So the first dilution, ang solute nyo, equal yan lagi ha, sa lahat ha, is always 3 is the given, which is 3 ml. Diluent nyo naman is equal to the solute times the total total volume minus the solute. So 3 times 5 minus 3. So 3 times 5 is 15 minus 3 is 12 ml. Then you now compute for final dilution. Pag nakuha mo na yung diluent mo, you now compute for the final dilution. And in this case, sa final dilution mo, we have the initial dilution, 1 is to 5, times the previous dilution. Since this is the first dilution, wala ka pang previous dilution. So 1 is to 1. Stick ka lang sa 1 is to 1. You now have a final dilution for the first dilution of 1 is to 5. You now go to the second tube. So second tube class, first get the solute 3 ml, get the volume of the diluent. So solute times the total volume, which is 10, minus the solute. So 3 times 10 minus 3. You get 27 ml. Then you compute for the final dilution. So in this case, 1 is to 10, which is the initial dilution for the second dilution, times the previous dilution, which is 1 is to 5. You get 1 is to 50. And then for the third one, balik ulit tayo sa third. So ang solute ulit is 3 ml. Ang dilution mo naman, same lang din siya, class. So 3 times the total volume minus 3. 3 times 10 minus 3. You get 27 ml. You get 27 ml. And then after that, you get the final dilution. So 1, 10 times the previous dilution, yung second tube nyo, 1 is to 50. You get 1 is to 500. So the total diluent used here is 12 plus 27 plus 27. So 27 plus 27 is 54 plus 12. You get total diluent use is 66 ml. A very far diluent amount from the 497. So that's how you would tackle compound dilution problems, class. So I hope that was clear. You just need to identify first ano yung mga possible smaller or initial dilutions that could lead to the target dilution which is given. Okay? So let's continue. Now let's go to the more complex type of compound dilution, the so-called serial dilution. So serial dilution, class, this is wherein all steps would have the same initial dilution. Di ba sa compound, iba-iba yung, you have different initials dilution. Yung 1 is to 5, times 1 is to 10, times 1 is to 10. But this time, sa serial dilution, pare-pareho sila. So if your first dilution is 1 is to 2, your second dilution will also be 1 is to 2, your third dilution will also be 1 is to 2. So do remember that ha. Kapag compound dilution, different initial dilutions. But if it's serial dilution, you have the same initial dilution. And to do this, to have the same initial dilution, class. So pag tinanong nyo ko, sir, how do we get the same initial dilution? To do that, you need to have the same diluent volume. Pare-pareho ang diluent volume nyo. Example, create a 1 is to 15,625 dilution with an initial sample of 1 ml. Sir, grabe naman pag try natin yan ng simple dilution. So try natin ng simple dilution yan, class. Matik, di ba? 1 minus 15. So ang diluent mo is 15,624 ml or 15 liters, 15.6 liters. Sobrang laki and that's not recommended. Kasi again, magkokos yan ng uh, magkokos yan ng proson or poson. Now, to do this, identify the initial dilution steps that can have the same amount of dilution. So, in this case, 1 is to 5, 1 is to 5, 1 is to 5, 1 is to 5. So, you multiply it 6 times. 5 times 5, 25, 125, 625, 3,125 times 5, 15,625. So, yan yung initial dilutions. Take note, class, that they have the same amount of dilution or total volume. Identify the amount of solute and diluent on the first solution. So, ang solute nyo, matic is 1 ml. Ang diluent nyo, matic, 4 ml lang siya, class. So, ayan. So, the diluent is 4 ml. Same with all tubes since there is the same initial amount of dilute. Follow the formula of final dilution. Final dilution is equal to initial dilution times previous dilution. So, ang initial dilution mo, 1 is to 5 times 1 is to 1. Again, previous dilution is 1 is to 1 kasi first dilution tube siya. Then, apply mo siya sa second tube. So, final dilution. Hindi ka na, there is no longer a need. No need to get the diluent and the diluent volume, class. Kasi again, all have same diluent volume. So kung ano yung diluent volume, whatever your diluent volume on the first dilution, it will be same with all the steps. So we have here your your second tube naman, 1 is to 5. Multiply mo siya sa previous dilution mo, you get 1 is 25. 1 is to 25, 1 is to... So, kaya siya naging 1 is to 125. Dito naman tayo, class. So, third one. 1 is to 5 times the previous, which is 1 is to 25. You get this 1 is to 125. And then the fourth one, and then... Sorry, 625 pala to. Times 1 is to 3125. You get your 15,625. So, yan yung pinaka-simple na ng serial dilution explanation, class. So, I hope you were able to learn something from it. Now, serial dilution, class, is also done to identify the titer of a person. So, you will hear a lot of topics related to this titer. Whenever we talk about titer, class, this refers to an indicator of an antibody strength. It is the dilution factor wherein a reaction occurred. Meaning, class, yan yung dilution factor where the sample became positive. Meaning nag-react siya, meaning naging positive siya. The initial dilution factor for all tubes determines the serial dilution's folding. Ano ba tong folding na to, class? Sa immunosero, meron tayong mga tinatawag na do a dilution using 4-fold, 2-fold, ganun. So to understand that, I'll give you an example. Ito yan. 2-fold meaning 1 over 2 and 4-fold meaning 1 over 4. Ang sabi dito sa last sentence, the initial dilution factor for all tubes, this determines the serial dilution's folding. Meaning, class, kapag sinabi mong make a 2-fold dilution using 4 tubes. Yung 4 tubes na yun will have a 1 is to 2, 1 is to 2, 1 is to 2 dilution. Similar kapag sinabing 8-fold, it will have 1 is to 8 times 1 is to 8 times 1 is to 8 times 1 is to 8. Ulitin ko, yung folding class na sinasabi dyan will determine what is your initial dilution for all tubes. Sample problem. Make an 8-fold dilution using 0.5 ml serum in a series of 6 test tubes. So, matic class 8-fold dilution. So, you have already an idea kapag 8-fold, 1 is to 8. Now, how many test tubes is this or how many initial dilution? 6 times. Bakit 6 times? Because you're going to use 6 test tubes. Is to 8 times 1 is to 8. So, alam mo na yung initial dilution mo. Just apply now the formula. First, ang gagawin mo, identify ano yung solute mo. So, ang solute mo dito, in this case, is 0.5 ml. How about your diluent? Again, ang formula ng diluent, just subtract it from the multiply it by the total volume, then subtract it again by the solute. So, 0.5 times 8 minus 0.5. So, yan. 0.5 times 8 minus 0.5, you get 3.5 ml. So, that is the diluent added to all the tubes. Then, each tube would contain 3.5 ml of diluent. 0.5 ml of serum is added to tube 1 and mixed, then added to tube 2. Repeat process until the last tube. So that's the serial dilution. So if you want to compute for this class, apply natin. So sa first tube nyo, hindi ko na ipapakita yung long cut ha. It's 1 is to 8. Bakit 1 is to 8? Again, initial dilution mo times previous. So 1 is to 1. Wala ka pa kasing previous since this is the first dilution. Sige na, pakita ko lang nga yung long version. 1, 8. And then, you now go to the second tube. So we have 1 is to 8 times the previous dilution. 1 is to 64. So I want you on your own to tell me ano yung dilution ng third, fourth, yung final dilution ha, not the initial, final dilution, fifth, and the sixth tube. Sige. So sa third naman class, so 1, 8 times 1, 64, you get 1, 5, 1, 2. So fourth naman, 1, 8 times 1, 5, 1, 2. You get 4, 0, 9, 6. 1 is to 8 times 1 over 4, 0, 9, 6. You get 3, 2, 7, 6, 8. And then 3, 2, 7, 6, 8 times 8. Ang 6 mo would be 1 is to 2, 6, 2, 1, 4, 4. So, ganun siya ka-diluted class. So, I doubt, imagine, no? 0.5 ml ang serum na ginamit mo. Tapos you make it, you fold it, you dilute it 8 times. So, sobrang diluted niya class. Okay? So, I hope you were able to learn something from the serial dilution. Okay, let's try another sample problem. Ito. Make a 4-fold dilution using 0.1 ml of serum in a series of test tubes. Determine how much diluent is to be placed per tube and calculate the final dilutions for each tube. Now, if the endpoint class was reached at tube number 4, what is the patient's titer? Again, di ba kapag sinabing titer, this is the dilution where there was an reaction that occurred. So, ang una yung gagawin dito, identify your initial dilution. So, ang initial dilution nyo is 1 is to 4. Bakit 1 is to 4? Kasi nga 4-fold. And how many tubes? Using 5 test tubes. So you already have your answer, class, for the initial dilution. Ang initial dilution nyo on all tubes is 1 is to 4. Next, you identify the diluent. To get the diluent, again, solute times the total volume minus solute. So 0.1 times 4 solute is 0.1 times 4 minus zero point 0.1. Let's try to use the calculator. You get 0.3 diluent. Ganun ka onte, class, on each test tube. So you already identified the diluent. You already have identified the initial diluent. Now, find now the final dilution. So, apply natin yung formula. Initial dilution times previous dilution. So, let's start with tube 1. 1 is to 4 times 1 is to 1. Again, bakit 1 is to 1? Kasi walang previous dilution siya sa first tube. Now, have 1 is to 4. Sa T2, 1 is to 4 times 1 is to 4. You get 1 out 16. The T3, 1 4 over 4 times 1 over 16. You get 1 is to 64. Sa T4 naman, 1 is to 4 times 1 is 6 to 64. 1 is to 256. And sa T5, 1 to 4 times 1 is to 256. You get 1 is to 24. So itong values na to, class, 1 is to 4, 1 is to 16, 1 is to 64, 1 is to 256, 1 is to 1024. These are the final dilutions. So you are now able to identify ano yung diluent mo, which is 0.3 ml. Ano ang initial dilution mo, 1 is to 4. Final dilutions mo for each tube. Now you want to know the titer of number 4, tube number 4, wherein there was a reaction that occurred. So, ang titer nyo is the reciprocal, di ba, or the dilution factor. Therefore, class, the titer of the patient is at 256. So, ayan siya. So, ayan. Naka-explain. So, that's how you would solve for serial dilution. For me, class, mas madali ang serial dilution kaysa sa compound dilution. Kasi sa serial dilution, you have the same initial dilutions. Sa compound kasi, mag-iisip ka pa. Mag-iisip ka pa ng possible dilution. So, it's easier to do serial dilution than compound dilution. So that ends the first activity of your Immunosera lab. I hope you were able to learn something. Thank you.